The notwithstanding clause was negotiated. It was part of why we signed on to the Constitution. And so, if you negotiate that you're going to have this special hot tub room or sauna room put into your house, and they build it, and it's there, and then it's never used, but it was part of why you bought the house, but people shame you for using it, that would be ridiculous. And we would not have signed on to the Constitution without the notwithstanding clause being in there. So, we need to use it within the rules it's set up for. And if I, as Premier, had the backing of the legislature and we put forward legislation, if the courts kick it back, and if we look and go, do you know what? The courts had a good point. We need to tighten this up. We need to make it better. Then, fine, we'll make it better and we'll go around again. But if the courts kick it back, what I would do is I would hold a free vote in my caucus. And if my caucus looks at the legislation and says, that was sound, we then would use the notwithstanding clause because it means that the people have spoken and the people need to stand up when you have your judicial system using liberal activism to stop you.
Okay, beginning with Jeff, we've gotten this question from a lot of people. Will you support, as a leader, 3 votes in the legislature, and in which circumstances would you not?
Of course. There was 1 free vote in the legislature during the Getty years, and that was on, I can't remember specifically, but there was 1 free vote in the legislature during the Getty years. There have been none during the Klein years, and none since. Yeah, obviously, free votes in the legislature are would be the norm for this party, and it would be a very rare occasion indeed, like money bills and so on, where any party discipline would be exercised. And the point is, if the party leader can't convince his own members that his bill is the right thing to do, the right way to go, obviously it needs work.
I actually don't think it should be the prerogative of the leader to stop a free vote. So the only times that I would feel that the MLAs in our party should not have a free vote is if their intent on that free vote is to vote against something that's explicitly spelled out by the party in the Constitution. So if they're going against the fundamentals of what this party is about, then that is the only time, I believe. And I believe we as a party should spell that out. So actually, I don't believe I should ever have the power to stop your MLA from having a free vote. So the only time it would be stopped if you, in creating this party, spell out that there is this 1 or 2 circumstances, and that would be a fundamental breach of who we are as a party. That's the only time. Thank you.
MLAs don't work for the leader of the party. MLAs don't work for the Premier. MLAs work for their constituents. I think one of the things we should keep in mind with our party, when all of us got accepted as candidates, we were told that if we said anything along the campaign trail that was at odds with policy that had been passed by our members, we would be the ones who would have to issue a clarification. So I would think if that's binding on the leader, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that, I think that's a reasonable approach. It's also binding on the executive. I think that that policy would also have to be binding on the MLAs as well. So I think that there are some restrictions, but I think that we have to be respectful of our members. If our members have gone through the effort of establishing policy, putting it forward, debating it at a convention, having it passed, our elected representatives, each and every one of them, should be standing up and voting in favor of those policies when they come before the legislature. Policies that our party has passed is that budget bills would be one of the areas where we would have party discipline. I mean, I've been challenged on that at town halls, and I'm encouraged the member to come forward with an alternative to remove that, because I think that may be something worth debating. I know it can bring a government down on a confidence vote, but if you don't actually have the confidence of your caucus in the budget provisions that you're passing, then maybe you should go back and change those provisions. So maybe that's something that we can debate. But I think generally speaking, as long as we don't have party policy, and there'll be a whole range of issues that come up that we don't have party policy on, the MLA has to be free to be able to vote their conscience or be able to vote the views of their constituents, whatever the case may be on those.
Beginning with Mark, we've had many questions about your stances on the environment versus industry, the oil sands, CO2 sequestration. Maybe you could all pack your environmental views into 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm just going to pick a couple because you can't fit them all in 2 minutes. But I have taken a public stand that CO2 sequestration is based on junk science. And even though I'm just in the middle of a leadership campaign, I issued a press release when the $8 billion deficit was announced in the fiscal update and called for an immediate cancellation of the $2 billion that they plan to spend on it. Now, conversely, my wife was a guide in Dinosaur Provincial Park. Real environmentalism, supporting our provincial parks, making sure we have clean water, and for the good things that some of the oil and gas companies have done to make sure that the oil sands now are going to generate less problems than other sources of oil. So we are improving it, but we need to support improvements that's based on real science. Like one of my cousins was involved up in Fox Creek, and they had a plant, and they were worried about SO4 emissions and things like that. And they were fighting to keep those to a very reasonable level. Well, those are types of pollutants that we want to make sure our industries keep using their technology to improve because they do have health consequences. But let's not buy in to Al Gore and junk science.
Two billions we've been sold. One is that there is a consensus on global warming. And the other is how quickly we can transition into a green energy economy. And I'm going to try to deal with both of those. By my count, there's at least 8 positions on global warming. There's the view that man-made human emissions are causing global warming and it's going to be catastrophic. There are those who think it's going to be moderate. There are those who think it's going to be mild. There are those who think it's going to be beneficial. There are those who think we can't do anything about it anyway, so we might as well adapt. There are those who think that it's actually being caused by solar flaring and it's natural because Mars is warming as well. There are those who actually look at the data and say, well, actually, we've seen global cooling over the last 10 years. And there are also those who believe that even if it is happening, it's going to be so darn expensive that maybe we should take that money and address real pressing environmental problems. So the idea that we have consensus on this issue is bunk. And I think we need to continue to keep that debate open. What I will say, though, is regardless of which one of those 8 positions you happen to subscribe to, what I do hear is that people are interested in energy efficiency. I found this when I was with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. One of the things that was so difficult for our business owners is managing the volatility of energy prices. So I agree with Mark. Let's cancel that $2 billion carbon sequestration fund. And let's do something that might actually improve the ability of people to transition away and into alternative energy. If you want to have solar panels on your house, or you want to put a high efficiency furnace in, or you want to be able to change out your fleet so you've got more fuel efficient vehicles, or maybe there's some machinery and equipment that will allow you to be able to use less energy, or maybe you can do a green building renovation so that you can end up with more energy efficiency there. I think there are a lot of people who just want to save money, and that seems to make good sense. I think I'll also just mention about the issue of moving into a green energy economy. I think we are in a global movement away from high carbon fuels. But this is going to be a 20 or 30 or 40 year transition. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And in the meantime, our hydrocarbon industry in Alberta is going to be a critically important resource, not just to Canada, but to North America as well. And we've got to continue supporting that industry.